Stand here for a moment. Feel the cold wind on a high mountain pass. You are in the Caucasus. Below you, steep valleys cut through the land like deep green wounds. Thick forests of oak, beech cling to the slopes. Above you, snow-capped peaks touch the sky. These mountains are a fortress. Look closer at the landscape. You might see the faint outlines of old terraced fields. You might find the scattered stones of a collapsed wall or a forgotten hearth. These are not just ruins. They are whispers of a life that once filled these valleys. These were homes, they were orchards, pastures, and villages. This land was once called Circassia. It was the homeland of a proud and numerous people. Now there is mostly silence. The silence itself tells a story. It is a heavy silence, filled with the ghosts of what has been lost. Where are the people who built these terraces? Where are the voices that once echoed in these valleys? The story of their disappearance is a hard one to tell. It is a story of war, conquest, and a deliberate plan to empty a land of its native inhabitants. It is the story of how a nation was scattered to the winds and how their homeland was forever changed. To understand what happened here, we must go back in time. We must journey to a period when great empires clashed. The peoples of the Caucasus were caught in the middle of this epic struggle. This is the story of the Circassians. It is the story of how a vibrant culture and a proud people were systematically destroyed and removed from their ancestral lands. It is a story that must be remembered. Who were the Circassians? They were a collection of related peoples, governed by councils of elders, a society built on strong family ties, and a deep love for their mountainous homeland. Their society was governed not by kings or written laws, but by an ancient code of conduct. This code was called the Adige Zabze. It emphasized courage, honesty, and generosity. Hospitality was sacred. A guest, even an enemy, was guaranteed safety. This bred fierce independence. Every man considered himself free and equal. To the north, a new power was rising. The Russian Empire was expanding in every direction. Under rulers like Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, Russia transformed into a modern European-style military power. The Caucasus Mountains, once a remote frontier, now stood directly in the path of expansion. Controlling the Caucasus meant controlling vital trade routes. In 1777, they began constructing a line of fortresses, the Caucasus Line. It was designed to cut mountain peoples off from the northern steppes and slowly squeeze them. For the Circassians, this line was aggression. Immediate conflict followed. The Russians replied with punitive expeditions. A low-level, brutal frontier war began. Generals like Alexei Yermolov, who came to command the Caucasus Army in 1816, believed that the only way to win was through terror. His strategy was to burn villages, destroy crops, and cut down forests, making the land uninhabitable. This was the beginning of a total war. The Circassians fought back. They were masters of guerrilla warfare. They would ambush Russian columns before melting back into the forest. Most chose to resist. They abandoned their homes and retreated deeper into the high mountains, vowing to fight to the end. While the Russian army advanced on land, the Russian navy began to tighten a noose around Circassia from the sea. The Black Sea coast was the lifeline of the Circassian people. Trade with the Ottoman Empire and British adventurers brought aid. The Russian High Command knew cutting this lifeline was crucial. Controlling the coast meant controlling the narrative. The mountains and people were sealed off, hidden from view. To win the war, the Russian army decided it had to wage war on the landscape itself. This meant a campaign of systematic deforestation on an industrial scale. It led to soil erosion and landslides, destroying the farmland in the valleys below. The war was scarring the earth itself. While the Circassians in the west fought, a new force was rising in the east, its most legendary leader, Imam Shamil. For 25 years, he led a relentless war against the Russian Empire. He established a state, the Caucasian Imamate. Shamil's war in the east forced the Russian Empire to fight a war on two fronts, dividing its massive army and resources. However, the fall of Shamil in 1859 marked a catastrophic turning point. He was forced to surrender. Now, the full, undivided might of the Russian Empire could be turned against the last remaining pocket of resistance, the lands of the Circassians in the west. The Russian Tsar Alexander II gave the order to finish the conquest of the Caucasus once and for all. The goal was the complete and total cleansing of the Western Caucasus Mountains of their native inhabitants. The violence of these final years surpassed all that had come before. It was a war of extermination. Eyewitness accounts from Russian officers describe scenes of horror. Entire tribes abandoned their ancestral homes and began a death march through the winter snows toward the Black Sea coast. Hundreds of thousands were driven down to the Black Sea shores, prisoners on the shores of their own homeland. Conditions were apocalyptic. Disease swept through the camps like fire. Typhus, smallpox. Survivors died in droves from sickness and starvation. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, perished each day. The final battle took place in May 1864. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. On May 21, 1864, the Russian commanders held a grand military parade in the valley. This date, May 21st, is now commemorated by Circassians worldwide as their day of mourning. The journey across the Black Sea was the next circle of hell. The only goal was to pack as many refugees as possible onto each vessel. There was no food, no water. Many ships went down, taking everyone on board. The Black Sea became a massive, unmarked graveyard. Arrival in the Ottoman Empire was not the salvation the Circassians had hoped for. The tragedy simply moved from one shore to another. Some estimates place the total death toll at over 500,000 people, perhaps as much as half of the entire Circassian nation. It was a demographic catastrophe. Back in the Caucasus, the Russian state moved quickly to erase any trace of the departed nation. The land that had belonged to Circassian clans for centuries was declared state property. The demographic map of the region was completely and permanently redrawn. The valley of Kubada, the site of the final massacre, was renamed Krasnaya Polyana. It hosted the 2014 Winter Olympics on the 150th anniversary of their expulsion. The Circassians who survived did not vanish. They endured. Scattered across the vast expanse of the Ottoman Empire, they slowly began to rebuild their lives. They clung fiercely to their identity, their language, and their Adige Zabzi honor code. These scattered communities became the seeds of the modern Circassian diaspora. Today, the vast majority of Circassians, several million people, live outside their ancestral homeland. They form a global diaspora. In recent decades, Circassians have mounted a powerful global campaign for recognition. To ignore this history is to be complicit in the erasure that was its ultimate goal. Remembering is a moral duty. We must look at the empty mountains and understand that these are not just features of a landscape. They are evidence of a history that demands to be told. The Circassian story is a grave that must be tended, a memory that must be kept alive. Only by confronting the darkest chapters of our shared history can we hope to learn from them. and ensure that such a disappearance of any people never happens again.